Not sure it needs to be said with the title, but this one's gonna be controversial. Hello, hello! My name is Ella Jean, your local fantasy author, and today I would like to share my takes on reading controversial books and authors. Yes, this is diving into the likes of Neil Gaiman and J.K. Rowling, but really through a perspective I was not expecting. You see, I went on a vacation this Christmas, visited a couple friends, visited my partner, all the good stuff, and while I was there, the book that I brought to sustain myself just wasn't clicking properly. And so we happened to stop by a used bookstore, and I happened to pick up a title without really much thought put into it. Eternal Life. What would it really mean to live forever? And it's about a woman who can't die, and her lover that follows her throughout 2,000 years of history. This was really my only option to read other than the book that I was not interested in at the time, and I was not expecting to start it. And realized pretty quickly this author is Zionist and the book is heavily, heavily religious. You may be sitting in the corner going, Ella, it's called Eternal Life. Look, I don't have religious trauma. I didn't grow up with religion, so nothing about religion really clicks. I am unobservant and ignorant. So, I was left with a situation that I really don't get myself into quite often, which is I didn't have a book to read. Because I didn't want to return to that one book. And this book is heavily religious. It's Zionist. The opinions it holds is questionable at best, spreads a bad message at worst. So, my instinct was to stop reading it. You see, I am a very anxious and nervous person. I have always held the belief that death of an author really doesn't work when the author is still alive. That the likes of J.K. Rowling, Neil Gaiman, that when authors are outed as having thoughts that hurt the people I love, being queer, being a queer woman, that I cannot read it because that is supporting the idea, and once you support the idea, that then it is normalized, and the money that you give to them is used to fund their ideals that I personally disagree with. The whole idea that you can't read J.K. Rowling because every time you buy something from her, she will use it to fund anti-trans agenda because she's living in black mold or some bullshit got to her brain. I know J.K. Rowling's the big one, but the big one to me was always Neil Gaiman. In case you didn't know, he got revealed to have assaulted some women. It came out all last year, but it's gone back years, and now I feel weird about the idea of reading the Neil Gaiman books that I have on my shelf that were bought before all of this came out. It has really always been my solution to never read the books, never touch them, never do anything with them, and just hope the authors get dropped from the boughs of history and fade away into the darkness. I know it might sound strange. This book was different. I was super curious about how far these views would go, and it was really the only book I had to read at the time. I have never been in religious spaces. I've never been in heavily religious spaces where their ideals include women being seen as mothers and housewives, while the men are the ones who make money and are allowed to have dreams, things like that. I knew it was a questionable book. I knew that it was going to have views that I didn't agree with and would likely get angry at. And yet I read it all the way through. And while, yes, the overarching theme is motherhood is the only thing that makes her complete in the eyes of God. What the fuck? Which I have severe judgment to as a woman-shaped person that never wants to ever actually bear children. But I had a critical eye. I knew what I was looking for. I knew what I disagreed with. And even when the faults stood out, there were genuine parts that I liked and found interesting. I actually found the scenes in the past where she is in Jerusalem and where she later ends up in different parts of the world throughout her 2,000 years were well written. The entire book was, in some ways, well written, even if I disagreed with the author's view. You see, I bought this book secondhand. Dara Horn got no money from me. I gave money actually to a local bookstore in Fayetteville, Arkansas, in which they had better use for the $7 I spent on Eternal Life. And through that, I realized there may be some nuance to reading controversial writers. I want to make it very clear that everyone has their own line on where they will stop. If you live your life and realize that an author is problematic and never want to touch them again, that is your right. That is how you're allowed to do it. I congratulate you and welcome you forward. Here's the thing. I live in a world of guilt. I extremely judge myself, and I hold myself to these very high self-policing moral standards. And through reading this book, I realized that there is a way to understand stories or get nostalgic about stories where you aren't supporting the author directly. I would not recommend buying books from problematic authors, Neil Gaiman, J.K. Rowling. There are other massive lists that kind of exhaust me to read directly. I also think that you should be careful sharing widespread support for them online. But at the end of the day, I don't read for the internet. I read in my free time. The only way the internet knows what I'm reading is at the end of the year wrap-up that I make every year. And in my free time, with books bought before they were problematic, or even bought secondhand, or thrifted, or given to you by a friend who wants to get rid of them, I don't think you necessarily need to stop reading them. First off, if we only read books that hold our opinions, you're never going to learn new things and you're never going to grow. I do think there is worth in reading problematic books and questioning the text and allowing it to reaffirm your views on things. I think critical thinking and some context, that even now I'm self-policing and being worried about my thoughts. It really comes down to, I understand some of you may not see where I'm coming from. That you go, it's really easy to cut those people off and to never worry about it again, and why would you ever be so worried about how you're seen and how you're viewed? But I come from a mindset that I self-police a lot. I will sit there and judge myself and punish myself for doing bad things and doing the wrong thing, even though the world is not black and white and is full of shades and shades and shades of gray. So if you feel better in your drive to be an ally and be supportive, to never read books from authors that have been called out, that is your prerogative. I'm just saying, when it comes down to self-policing and punishing yourself for still finding nostalgia, comfort, and care in novels that you grew up with, that are from authors that you based your entire personality on for a while, come from places that are meant to be kind and caring, and now have this weird tang in the back of your throat because you know some unfortunate truth, that you can still read them. That not everything needs to be shared online in order to be valid. If you need to cozy up with a book, regardless of who wrote it, you shouldn't punish yourself for it. If you can't tell, I have incredibly strict, intrusive thoughts about this sort of thing, And you may be sitting there, like I said, and have no problem with it, and are like, oh yeah, I do read these books in my free time. You just don't talk about it, and it's fine. Know that there are others in the corner who see those videos saying these are the people to remove from your shelves and never read again because they're horrible people. And yet it seems to be authors that you enjoy, that I hope I can free your mind a little bit and give you some peace. Because demanding perfection from allyship in the insanity of the world we have today is just going to burn you out. You and I reading a book that we bought before the controversy or got secondhand in a way that the author will never see, it's not going to cause widespread harm. Reading is supposed to be fun. So, take a breath and give yourself some grace. Because remember, writing is difficult, and daring to continue past the first page is brave, especially the way the world is right now. I do want to form a community with you, because I truly believe anyone can write, and everyone has a story in them. Side note, just to have it clear and out there and said, if you have a stricter line on what you will and won't read, that's perfectly fine. I would like to stress that I'm advocating for getting these sorts of books secondhand and simply releasing the eternal guilt about self-policing. Please, for the love of all that is holy, do not turn this discussion into how to be a perfect ally, as there is no perfection in human nature. Nothing is truly black and white. And know that we already feel more guilt about reading it than you can make us feel by being mean. Cool.